How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Nice to meet you.
You as well. How have you been during quarantine and everything?
You know, you always have to qualify that answer with the fact that I'm healthy and
Yeah,
and and I can work because I write, and that so both of those are that's the first thing, and both of those things are really important, and they're two things a lot of people don't have: the ability to work and health. So I'm happy about those, but it's also been really challenging, and I think it's challenging. For all of us. We're such social beings. I mean, that's who we are. That's the essence of being a human, and we're being deprived of that right now, and it's really challenging. Um,
I think it goes a bit back and forth because there have been times where I feel like personally I've wanted a break from certain stuff and I was like, it's too much, everything. So it's been a nice, unfortunately, breather of everything.
yeah,
But at the same time, like there are days where I'm like, oh, it's been 3 weeks. It's just been home and that's about it and the like, you know.
right.
So
It does feel like a big, truly a global meditation.
yeah, it's been interesting.
So
Uh,
crazy.
so I've now seen the film 3 times.
Whoa.
I saw it last year at TIFF
Oh, great.
and loved it. And then I saw it twice this over the weekend. Once, incidentally, was a double feature with Baby Driver that was unintentional, but then also really worked in a way
That's
that I never saw.
that is so funny. I wouldn't have thought of that pairing. I love that.
But then the more and more after I think as Sound of Metal started, I was like, this is actually really good double feature. Um,
Which one did you see first?
Baby Driver.
Ah, that's amazing.
I had seen both of them were on second and third rewatches, but I was showing Baby Driver to my girlfriend because she hasn't seen it before and she loved it. Um, as I said, I've seen your film 3 times, so I very much loved it
Oh,
immensely.
well, that's an honor right there. I have to tell you, as a filmmaker, when people watch a film more than once, it really is just an honor in and of itself. So I really appreciate that level of attention.
I want to ask. I read a bit about on the statement, but how else did the story come to you?
Well, I've talked about the doc that it came from and my collaboration with Derek C. in France, and that's kind of the literal seed that it was in the beginning, and that's really important. And um, but actually the story itself, the essence of the story, was something that was really it took years of mining for me. And you don't really know that when you begin a project,
Mm-hmm.
what it's going to take and what you're going to find. And I think that that's partially because it was scary. It was like what I was actually unearthing in this film was really challenging for me, and it was bringing up this concept of how hard and tight we hold on to things, believing that we are protecting them, when in fact that may not be the case, and they may be, um, it may be time to let go. And so that finding that the heart of this story, that was the real surprise. That was the real um, treasure of it, was that codependent relationship and the journey of that you get to go on through the whole deaf culture and everything, but really out the other side.
Mm-hmm. What was the energy on set like? Because it's a kind of intense film in some ways.
Yeah, I think so. And that we had such a family on set. I mean, this was a remarkable journey because um, it was it first of all, I insisted on us shooting chronologically for this film, and that's incredibly important, especially for this movie, because it's such a chronological journey. I mean, literally the physical process of losing hearing, Riz actually literally went through that. So we began with this intensity and music and like a live club and a real room in Boston, and all of these things were kind of how I approached the process. It just had to be real. It had to be a lot at stake. and there had to be no safety net. That was the basic premise of everything when we shot. And because of that, and we're shooting on 35, so you can't just roll and roll and roll. And because of that, like, level of intentionality and level of focus, it was really intense and exhilarating and kind of awesome. You know, it was like you hit the ground and you're okay, you're in a club one day, and then you're in a you know, and you're doing a live show, and it's like, then it's done and it's over, and you're in an airstream, and now you're flying through the country, and Riz is driving because that
Mm-hmm.
thing's big to put on a trailer, and you know, and that's exhilarating. Um and you know, and it's a road trip, and you're in it and experiencing it, and everything felt palpable like that. And the essence of chronological shooting is wonderful because things, there can be stuff at stake. So for instance, when Ruben and Lou split, like, that's goodbye, goodbye, there's an actual goodbye.
Right.
And then she's gone, and um and all of a sudden, you were, wait, we were just in a club, and now we're in a deaf community, and we are in a deaf community, and our lunches are silent and on set, and we are you know, meshed in that feeling, which was utterly magical. And like, you know, it was, so everything felt like that. It just felt like a real experience, like we all collectively, everyone experienced the movie.
How did Riz and Olivia both get involved? Like, I'm massive fans of both of them, but
Cool.
sorry.
No, that's cool that you know both of their work ahead of this, and you know, some people do, some people don't, and I think they're really both extremely special actors. You know, it's so weird. Like, while I'm writing this movie, I didn't know about either of them, and I cast the movie for quite a few years and went through so many actors, and was really looking for actors that wanted more from an experience of making a movie than just the product of a movie. I was
Right.
looking for people who wanted transformation, who wanted, like, you know, actual transcendence, something to change and shift in them, and to be vulnerable that way. And they both have that quality. Riz and Olivia both, if you look at their work, the level of talent that they have is kind of ridiculous. I mean, they're both just extraordinarily natural talents, just instinctively amazing. But they also both had this opportunity to do something that they had never done before. And Riz, you know, I offered Riz the role halfway through lunch when I met him. It was so clear to me that he had that hunger for something special. And he, you know, that's hard to find. um, Everyone likes to talk about process, or talk about, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis, who spends a year getting it together, but no one wants to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, who's going to turn off life and stop backing up projects one after another and shut everything down to learn ASL and learn the drums and go to AA groups and mine the depths of your soul? Who's doing that? You know, who's actually doing that work? Especially for a first-time director, you know, and that's a tough sell. So I met this guy, and it was very clear very quickly that he was not just down for it, but he was appropriately scared and really excited. And I love the balance of that. I love the fear and the excitement. If there wasn't any fear, I'd be nervous because it should be scary. And Olivia too, same deal. Like, she came on later. So like, Riz had already been practicing these two things for months when Olivia came on. And um, I didn't know her work even before I met Olivia. And I met her and was just kind of blown away by this person that I saw it again. It was very similar. I called my producer literally walking out of the meeting, and I said, let's just do this. Let's do this. She's right.
Well, they both seem, outside of their work and in their work that I've seen, they both seem like very genuine people, and that comes across within the film as well. Um,
Yeah, you know, the audacity of sincerity, you know, like, so much of what we see is masked in ego and
mhm.
all sorts of things, and just like, what it, you know, I love sincerity. I love how brave it is to just actually put something sincere in the world. um so, and they are that. You're exactly right. They're not pretentious. They just wear themselves very honestly.
Um, so you and Riz had met for like it was 4 months prior to the shooting.
Oh no, way before that.
What was it? No, sorry, like to do all the prep work,
No,
right?
Riz actually moved to Brooklyn. I think it was 7 months before we
Okay.
were shooting to do the prep, something like that. He was the commitment was pretty big in that way.
Um, was it you or him or a combination that sort of came up with some of the tattoo ideas? Because every once in a while I would look at some and I'd be like, those are funny or interesting or something.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the tattoos. I would say that I really feel like the tats were Riz, and but also Sean Powell, who is the drummer of Surfboard, who is this kind of spirit guide for Ruben, and spent a lot of time with Riz in Brooklyn, and he's an incredible guy. He's like he was a heroin addict. He's covered. You got to look him up. Just look up Sean Powell, and you'll know immediately what I'm talking about. And some of his tattoos are actually on.
Oh, okay.
Some of them are actually on him, and I actually think that his accent, the locality of where he came from, is in Ruben as well. He was a real part of the DNA of who Ruben was on screen for Riz.
Were you previously fluent in ASL for your grandmother, or was there a translator on set?
No, because my grandmother was late deafened. So my grandmother didn't know ASL, and that's why she was such an interesting inspiration for the movie, because she was stuck between the two cultures.
Hmm.
She was a alcoholic. She was a cinephile. She knew everything about every movie. I mean, she's just an incredible intellect, a gay Jewish woman in New York, and very intense person. And she got she lost her hearing after taking an antibiotic. And so all of a sudden she just, this person, talk about, like, we were talking about the pandemic and what it does to us, but all of a sudden she was just like, she couldn't talk, she couldn't communicate with the hearing community, and she couldn't communicate with the deaf world. She called herself a queer deafie. um, and she, but it wrecked her.
Hmm.
And she was consumed with alcoholism and many other things, and it was very hard on her and hard on the family around her, and that's the experience that I mined from her and witnessed.
I think that's part's very like evident, especially in the early scenes with Ruben in the shower, sort of trying to like come to grips of everything that's happening.
Yeah, yeah, and
Um,
that lurking sense of something scary, which, yeah, which isn't necessarily the hearing loss.
there's a reoccurring theme of stillness and like silence, the idea of being comfortable in that silence. You said it yourself, it sort of starts off very loud in a club. It also ends up being very loud near the end as well. um I'm someone that deals with a lot of anxiety and a lot of like these noises in my head that I try and drown out, um whether that be music, podcasts, whatever, trying to always keep myself busy. But there is something beautiful and fulfilling in that silence when you finally feel comfortable in it. So how did you design that like roller coaster ride throughout the film of like you get to a point where you're comfortable in the silence or you're used to it throughout it, and then all of a sudden the noise comes back again and you're like, get rid of it, please.
That's beautiful. And by the way, thanks for sharing that about yourself, because that's the stuff that we often don't speak of, and I think that's what I was interested in this movie, is being within someone. We spend most of our time not really knowing what other people are going through in their own minds, and not knowing that we don't know you have those sounds or voices in your head, and you're contending with it. And so that was the aspect of this movie that was so exciting. One of them was just that ability to enter into that to a degree. And really what I was so excited about in the making of this film was to try to create an experience which is alluding to something. I mean, it's referring to something you were alluding to, which is, what do we go through as an audience as we experience this? Because it's a bit physical, isn't it? It's like the physicality of the sound. is we're uncomfortable in it. It's loud in the beginning, even in the show, and like you say, there's that mirroring at the end, which is entirely on purpose, and even literally a mirroring. There are sounds that overlap, so it's almost this fateful return to a sound you thought you'd lost, but it's happening in a different way. And like you say, you want that thing that you just got used to back. But what's also interesting in this movie is that some people have a hard time being in the deaf community. What I find fascinating reading reviews of this film is the way people are absolutely sure which acts are not as good as the other acts. Like, the first act was great, and then I was just like the middle act was just too slow, and you're like, that person for whatever reason couldn't find solace in that thing that you did,
Right.
or the third act was just jarring, and like those things are really fascinating and compelling to me as a filmmaker, because I think that's what I was after, is what does this do for all of us as we go through this experience? How do we deal with it? And at the, and ultimately, where do we sit and how do we sit? And that, so I'm really after that in this movie.
I think all three acts are equally impressive. It's a journey. It's not the whole point. Weird to say, but in my mind, it's like the start to finish and the transformation in between. That's what I want to watch. That's what I want to see. And um, I think I can talk to you about it all day. But then there's also, I think I'd be upset with myself if I didn't bring up. You also wrote Place Beyond the Pines, which also has a very unique three
Structure.
act structure, and um, it's just so fascinating because you're interested in a lot more long-term journey wise of what things may mean as opposed to just now, right now, and everything found in that moment.
It's really fascinating what you end up writing and making. It's just so crazy the way there's so much crossover and interesting crossover with Pines, and then of course there's the Derek element of it also, and how he and I cross over creatively and how we influence each other. And but yeah, I think Place Beyond the Pines was really after a unique experience, whether you like it or not. It's very brave, and it is inherently brave, and it's asking you to deal with impermanence and legacy in a palpable way. It just is by its very nature, and some people can deal with it and some people can't. And it definitely challenges structure and form in a way that's interesting and new. And I think that it's true that this film, Sound of Metal, does those things in a different way. Also, even though it's very three-act based, it's also kind of defies expectation, at the same time. And that was so I like to see these crossovers with these projects.
Well, thank you very much. You have been great to talk to.
Such a pleasure, man. And like I said, just an honor. I really, really am honored that you watched the film 3 times, and that means more to me than most things. So that's what I do this for. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, take care, and I look forward to anything and everything you do next.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.